No? Good morning once again. Are we all melted? I hope so. I definitely feel like the retreat energy that we've been in is spilling over into this service, and it's feeling a bit more like almost like it's continuing versus being a service. It's really nice. It feels good to share that energy with those of you that weren't in the retreat. So welcome, and welcome to everybody that's new here. It's so good to see you. Welcome. So good to have you with us. And yeah, thank you for joining us. This morning I want to speak on understanding as the beginning of love. Understanding as the beginning of love. It's something that Thich Nhat Hanh used to say so often. One of my favorite spiritual teachers is the Buddhist Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, and he would always say that understanding is the beginning of love, that we really can't love well if we don't understand the person we're loving. And so how do we gain understanding? You tell me. Listening, through communication, right? Through communication. So I'm speaking a lot about how we communicate in a way that's effective. Because I feel like in our world we need to talk to each other. We need to talk to each other and listen to each other in a way that we really hear and feel each other, in a way that isn't violent, in a way that is from the heart, you know? You know, as humans, one of the most essential things for us is to have meaningful connection. Is there anybody that doesn't want that? Raise your hand. We need meaningful connection. You know, it's so important. And, you know, we did that so much in our retreat this weekend. We really shared in ways that felt so meaningful and so enriching and so healing and so allowing of us to shine and be who we really are in our most vulnerable self. I saw this funny cartoon the other day where this mom and dad were huddled around their computer and they were composing, the dad was composing an email for his son. And he wrote, "Dear Andy, how have you been? Your mother and I miss you. Please sign off your computer and come downstairs for something to eat." Love, Dad. Does that sound familiar? Please put down your cell phone and come downstairs for something to eat. Our hearts need to connect, and especially with our loved ones, you know. One of the things we do in retreat is I have people pair up and I have one person share and the other person listens. And I remember years ago, a husband and wife told me, the husband said, "My wife has not listened to me for 20 years without saying a word, and for 20 minutes in about 20 years." They made him so happy. I mean, it was just so healing. And they, you know, they offered that to each other. So it is, it's the understanding that gives us, it fills us up and it gives us strength to meet, you know, what life brings. And of course, the other side of that is, you know, when we feel misunderstood, when we don't communicate, we can't communicate, there's some kind of block there, you know, we feel disconnected, you know, and it's painful when we don't feel seen, isn't it? It's painful when we don't feel heard or when we feel judged unfairly. Misunderstanding, you know, it fuels division, it fuels wars. So that, I mean, that makes you realize just how incredibly important skillful communicating is. It can relieve a lot of suffering, and not communicating can create a lot of suffering. Have you noticed that? Is that true? Okay, just making sure. So we really need two things to communicate well, to have heart-to-heart sharing. You mentioned one, deep listening. What's the other one? Compassion and in our speech, loving speech. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it loving speech. Deep listening is having the ability to listen, being present with presence, and not thinking in your mind what you're going to say. You know, have you ever noticed sometimes you're talking to somebody and you're sharing, and before you even finish, they're giving you advice? Like they actually cut you off and give you advice? You know, that is not deep listening. And then, speaking with kindness, like you said, Ken, speaking with compassion, and speaking respectfully, right? And that means we take responsibility for our inner energy, right? We talked about that a lot in the retreat, being accountable for our inner energy and the words we choose and the intention behind the words we choose. Also, the words we write, right? And even the thoughts we think, all of that, because thoughts are things, right? We sing about that. So there's such a difference in how we say something. Like I could say, I love you so much, or I could say, love ya. It's quite different, isn't it? It's quite different. I saw another funny comic recently. These two men were sitting together on this little love seat, and the one man is facing the other, and he's got a megaphone up to his mouth, and the megaphone's right at this other guy's ear, and this other he's calmly saying, John, it's not what you say so much, it's how you say it. Right? We're all energy beings. We have these sensitive nervous systems, and we can feel intention behind tone, right? We can feel intention, and behind pitch, and behind volume, right? Behind how something's said. And when we sense the intentions for healing, we naturally open. You can sense when someone's intention is for healing. And conversely, we can also sense when it's to blame, right? Or we can sense when it's going to be judging or be belittling, right? And we naturally close when that happens to protect ourselves. So there's times we feel really strongly about our position. And, if we don't have a lot of skill, it can be challenging to remain respectful. And so that's why we learn skills. That's why I put so much time into our retreat practicing these skills, is so that we have the ability to even say, I'm sorry, when we realize we were unconscious. I love that Ho'oponopono practice. What is it? It's like, I love you. I'm sorry. I love you. Forgive me. Thank you. Those are really good things to be able to say, right? Oh, we have a woman, Colleen Akiko, has been here singing. She's going to come and teach Ho'oponopono in person August 6th, I think. Yeah, so that's going to be special. And then there's always that, that other thing that happens, the steamrolling monologue. That's where someone won't let you get a word in edgewise. Oscar Wilde was one of those people who said, I like to do all the talking myself. It saves time and prevents arguments. Know anybody like that? So being a conscious human means communicating consciously. It means learning to not cause harm. That's a value taken Buddhism, to not cause harm. You do your best to not cause harm and instead create greater connectedness. We did so much of that this retreat, and also just becoming aware of our emotional body. How's my physical body? How's my emotional body? It's great. That's what mindfulness is being able to check in and notice, how is your emotional body doing? Sometimes we get triggered. And our work is to notice when we're angry or we're triggered or we're irritable, and refrain from reacting in that moment where we're really going to cause the most harm, right? I'll talk more about that in a minute. For me, I am so aware my energy field is powerful, and I share with my retreat, I've learned to absolutely not interact when I'm angry. But sometimes you're sort of stuck, right? You're talking to someone and you can't get away, and I've learned to just breathe and calm myself right in the moment I feel heated, and at least come out neutral, not cause harm. That's basically really my commitment. So Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a lot about asking yourself when you're judging someone, if he has a mantra, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure that that big story that you're creating about someone else and how wrong they are and how terrible they are, or how they have so many shortcomings, are you sure? Because rare as it might be, we could be wrong, right? Could be wrong. And it reminds me of that song, "Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way." Do you know that one? It's such a good one. And that's the thing. As long as we, notice when we make mistakes and when we admit those mistakes and we vow to change and we make the effort to change, we've taken the compost and we've turned it into roses, right? So there's a story that I heard years ago. It had such an effect on me that I think I might have told it when I first started here 2 years ago, but I want to tell it again because it's so worth repeating. And it's a story about being humbled by being wrong. And so it's in a poem form, and it's called The Cookie Thief by Valerie Cox. A woman was waiting at an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She hunted for a book in the airport shop, bought a bag of cookies, and found a place to drop. She was engrossed in her book, but happened to see that the man sitting beside her, as bold as he could be, grabbed a cookie or two from the bag in between, which she tried to ignore to avoid a scene. She munched the cookies and watched the clock as the gutsy cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the minutes ticked by, thinking, if I wasn't so nice, I would blacken his eye. With each cookie she took, he took one too. When only one was left, she wondered, what would he do? Well, with a smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other, and she took it from him, saying, "Oh, brother, this guy has some nerve and he's also rude. Why, you didn't even show any gratitude." She had never known when she'd been so galled, and she sighed with relief when her flight was called. She gathered her belongings and headed to the gate, refusing to look back at that thieving ingrate. She boarded the plane and sank in her seat. Then she sought her book, which was almost complete. As she reached in her baggage, she gasped with surprise. There was her bag of cookies before her eyes. "If mine are here," she moaned in despair. "The others were his. And he tried to share." Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. Such a powerful story. We've all had those moments where we were so sure of our judgments of someone, and we go, "Oh my goodness, I was wrong." And it's humbling, hopefully. It's great to have humility because we are all human and we will all make mistakes. It's just part of being human. But if we grow from them, then they're not mistakes, really. I mean, we need to, pay attention, not be filled with shame and guilt for the rest of our lives, but use those mistakes to be mindful next time, to do better. So a mantra when your mind is spinning a story is, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" This woman feeling all that resentment towards the guy whose cookies she was snarfing down, she should have asked herself, "Are you sure?" Maybe it's not what you think, right? Part of becoming a more conscious human is we come from compassion, from loving kindness more, and self-interest less. They come from the heart more and less from the ego. So, as I was saying, I feel like such a big part of being conscious is really vowing. I mean, really having an inner commitment that you want to do no harm to yourself or to anyone. We always have to include ourselves in the love and in the doing no harm, right? For me, love has always been my highest value. I want to become love more and more, and we get better with practice. Get better with practice. The other thing I was sharing in retreat that I'm learning is how to have healthy boundaries while being loving. You know, how to, it's kind of like a fine line, having healthy boundaries as well as being loving. And, you know, only offering respect and only being willing to receive respect. You know, that's a healthy boundary, right? And for me, you know, I think it takes a long time to really know that your intention is really pure, that you want to be about love. And so, you know, and you love yourself enough to state when you have to state your healthy boundaries. But I think part of growing into self-empowerment is taking responsibility for our energy always, right? Being accountable for what we're thinking and what we write, what we say, what our vibration is, really. I feel like humanity en masse really needs to learn to do that more, to really be accountable for what we're bringing, because we're always creating. We're always creating. Yeah. I mean, you know, in ministry, many years of ministry, I sometimes feel like people, they want to get into the altered trance states, you know, and get blissed out, but not do that hard spiritual work that we have to do sometimes. You know, who was the one that said that yesterday? Was it Kate? She was saying, yeah, you can't do the spiritual bypassing, right? Yeah, yeah, because we want the light to grow. So let's take a look at those two keys to effective communication. There's a quote that says, a good listener is not only popular everywhere, but after a while they know something. I love that. So what do you love about a good listener? You tell me. What do you receive when someone listens well, like in the retreat this weekend? You feel heard. Yes. Understood, right? And does that kind of feel like love? Yeah. Yes. Yes, an internal shift. Yes. And less shame. And maybe you are finding your own answer just from having that witness. Phyllis, you feel significant. You matter. You feel like you matter. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. That's so true. You know, and it is so much about quieting our mind and, you know, having a compassion store. I like to keep my storage unit of compassion really full so that, you know, when someone really needs listening, I can listen. And, you know, I'll tell you, sometimes what they're sharing is really a lot of suffering. You know, I counsel a lot. I mean, people come, they're in a lot of grief. You know, someone's dying or someone died or they're getting a divorce or they've got a terminal illness. I mean, there's a lot of suffering that they bring. And if my compassion store is filled up, I've got the energy I need. And sometimes they also bring really angry, rageful energy. You know, they're feeling an enormous amount of injustice for some reason. And sometimes that's a little harder to be present with. But if my compassion store is filled up, it's almost as if that compassion store is my protection, you know? That negativity can't, you know, it can't, you know, it just doesn't have a chance when I'm filled with compassion. The compassion is the greatest power. The love is the greatest power. And it helps transform, you know, when we can allow people whatever they feel and meet them with compassion. And when we can do it for ourselves, whatever we feel, we meet it with compassion. So one of the things we shared in retreat, I won't go into it much, but when we're triggered, it's so good to know the 4 things to do. I'm going to just do a little review. And the first one is to name it that you're triggered. You notice you're all hot, your face is turning red, your heart's beating really fast, and you're really ready to say something that is, ay, ay, ay. Right. Okay, so you name it, and then you do the next thing really quick, and that is take space appropriately. And what is it to take space inappropriately? It's to say what you were going to say and then leave. Appropriately is don't say it, leave. Take a breath, leave, have some space, come back to your sanity, and then you can do the fourth. The third thing is shift your state. That's come back to your sanity, take a walk, go to the bathroom, or you can say, can we revisit this topic later? Because I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm having a lot of emotions. That's skillful to be able to say that. And then number 4 is to deal with a situation. Of course, you get to choose your battles. If you're never going to see the person again, you don't have to deal with the situation. If it's somebody you live with, well, you're going to have to deal with the situation. Because when we're triggered, it's fight or flight. The amygdala comes online and, we're ready to fight or flight, right? But when we take a break, we can get back in touch with our emotional body, calm it down, and get back to wanting to come from the heart and coming from the heart. I like this scripture from Paul, Romans 16:17. He wrote, I urge you, brothers and sisters, to watch out for those who cause divisions and put obstacles in your way that are contrary to the teachings you have learned. Keep away from them. I think what he's saying there is kind of to guard your energy. But we are going to deal with unconscious people, and sometimes every day, right? It's just part of life. And people that, are about division because they're unconscious. They don't know better, or they haven't chosen to learn better. And so we need healthy boundaries, but I also feel like we also need to hold a prayer for all the unconsciousness in ourselves and in others, that people realize that there's a better way, that you can let go of your negativity, that you can practice every day and let go of it and find inner peace and create inner peace and use that mantra, are you sure, And, we can be the change we want to see. We can help everyone create greater skill and develop greater skill in creating connection instead of alienation, So be that. Marshall Rosenberg always talked about empathy, and he described empathy, and I think this is what we really saw in retreat, as getting in touch with our feelings and needs and realizing, being present for what's alive in somebody, that's empathy, being present for what's alive in somebody. And that, we each have needs that are important to us. And so understanding each other's needs is, wow, that understanding is healing. And it's really the antidote to, I think, a lot of conflict in relationships. So loving speech is the other thing. I remember my boyfriend in college was from Puerto Rico, and he taught me this one most important thing in Spanish. Te quiero con todo mi corazón para siempre. ¿Comprende? ¿Sí? I love you with all my heart forever. That's loving speech. But sometimes, we need to say, I love you and I'm suffering, right? I love you and I'm suffering, please help. That's one of those mantras that I shared. But we have to say it in a way that's skillful. We can't say, you make me suffer, you are this and that and that, right? Because then what happens? There's no chance, right? So in Buddhism, loving speech is called right speech, and it has 4, it's nonviolent, it's honest, but it's kind. It's honest, but it's kind, okay? Marry those 2 things with any words you're going to speak. So the first thing in loving speech is to tell the truth, and there's a way to tell the truth where the other person doesn't feel threatened. That's the kindness there. Remember that your truth may not be the truth, right? Remember the cookie thief. Number 2, don't exaggerate. You know how when someone exaggerates a mistake you've made and they make it 10 times worse? Has anybody ever done that to you? I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize for them right now. Yeah, and don't make it bigger than it is to justify your perspective. Number 3, we want to be consistent and no double talk, speaking one way to one person and another way to that person, right? But they're 2 different ways. That's not really telling the truth. And then lastly, using peaceful language and refraining from speech that's violent, abusive, accusing, or judgmental. Yeah. And then Ty has 6 mantras for loving speech that he recommends making part of your regular talk to the people that you care about. And they are: number 1, I am here for you. I'm here for you. I want to tell you all that I am here for you. I love you all. I'm here. You can get in touch with me anytime. Number 2, I'll make myself cry. I thought I cried it all out this weekend. Number 2, I know you are there, and I am very happy that you are there. It's beautiful. Number 3, I know you suffer, and that's why I'm here for you. That allows someone to let it be okay that they're suffering and maybe have a chance to share their suffering with you. Number 4, I suffer. Please help. It's really important to say, I'm suffering, please help. Of course, you want to say it to somebody that's skillful enough to meet you and support you and help you. Number 5, this is a happy moment. It's important. I like that we're bringing that joy into our prayer-mony, that we also share the things that are happy. We had such a beautiful retreat, and we blessed Unity at the Lake with a whole bunch of money. So it's a happy moment, and that's a good thing we all did together. And number 6, my personal favorite, you are partly right. Gosh, if we could say that more, I think it could save a lot of relationships, right? That person, maybe they're mostly wrong, but probably 1%, right? If they're just 1% right, even you can still say that mantra and you're telling the truth. So in closing, let us turn up the desire in our hearts for greater understanding, for better communication, for healing in our relationships, for healing in our community. The masters all teach us. Jesus was the great teacher in love. Love one another as you are so loved. We are so loved. We are beloved children of the most loving presence you could possibly ever imagine. And so if we could love each other with that kind of love, well, we would imagine that world living as one, and we'd bring it into being. So let's remind each other often, I am here for you. And even when we disagree, well, you're probably partly right. So may our hearts blossom, may our thoughts and words be sweet, and may we fill this world with an abundance of love and an abundance of understanding and well-being. Thank you all. Om Shanti, Om Peace. Love you all.
Thank you, Kathy. That was wonderful. I love that. You're partly right. I'm going to use that. Oh, yes. Could you, stop the recording? Okay. And then now